welcome to the channel. I'm back to take a first look at this Week 3 NFL DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. We have 2 weeks under our belt. Excited to get into this one, starting to gather some data, things like snap counts, targets, all of the above, starting to get more of an idea of where these offenses are at, where these teams are focusing, their game plans around, etc. So I'm really excited to start digging into this week's breakdown. Before we do, quick reminder, if you do enjoy the content at any point in this video, if you could please take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. And if you are getting very serious about NFL DFS, I would highly recommend my NFL DFS premium package. Just link below in the description. You get access to all the same tools that I use in building my own NFL DFS lineups, and I'm excited to announce I'm adding even more over there. We got projected ownership. We got a top stacks tool. I'm really excited. I'm even going to give you guys a sneak peek of this top stacks tool because I've been working really hard on this. We still have some data in here from last week, but I have now a DraftKings top two-man stack here. You know, QB wide receiver combinations, QB running back, QB tight end, running back defense and special teams, running back and wide receiver, and then a three-man stack tool as well. QB wide receiver, QB running back, wide receiver, QB wide receiver, tight end, QB running back, tight end stacks, all color-coded, all going to give you a good idea of who you should be targeting in your lineups. And the first week using it, I mean, that's some really good. The one that really stands out to me here is over on DraftKings. My top tight end QB combination was Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. That obviously paid off great last week. And then if you look at my top running back wide receiver stack as well, Cooper Kupp, Darrell Henderson Jr., that would have paid off great as well. You know, that's an example of two of the top stacks in my top stacks tool that really performed very well last week. And I look forward to continuing to use that tool. I look forward to providing it for you guys. If you are interested in checking this package out, I have that and so much more to offer in that package. Check it out on Patreon. That's linked below in the description. So sorry to ramble about that, but really getting excited about that package. I think it's going to help you out tremendously, and honestly, I'm getting very, very excited to use these tools I've been developing. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and start taking a first look at this Week 3 slate. We're going to go ahead and go position by position. We'll start on DraftKings, and then we'll go to the FanDuel on the latter half of the video. And we're going to start with the QB position. As far as who I'm looking to this week on this slate, we definitely have some games that are standing out from a pace over-under perspective that we could definitely be taking a sharp look to. First game that really is going to stand out to me from, well, I should say the first guy that's going to stand out to me is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has been unbelievable from a fantasy aspect throughout the year since coming into the league, and he just continues to be absolutely amazing. I mean, I was watching this guy this past week. It doesn't matter whether they get to him in the pocket. It doesn't matter whether he has protection. He can scramble, get free, find a guy downfield. He just does it over and over again. His team has a 29.5 implied total, a 7-point spread. This game's expected to stay somewhat close in Jacksonville, and I'm not too worried about the Jacksonville matchup when looking at how the Jaguars have fared against the QB position so far on the season. They've been the 13th best team to target, not really scaring anyone, and I think that Kyler Murray should continue to have his dominant ways this week. I mean, some of these numbers I've been looking at on my QB key stats tool as far as Kyler Murray are just absolutely ridiculous. 129.43 true passer rating, 57.14 pressured completion percentage. He's really not getting that much protection from his O-line. He's still managing to get it done. 5.82 air yards per attempt. His deep ball completion percentage is at 75% right now on 12 deep ball attempts. That's, you know, pretty up there as far as deep ball attempts for the most part in the league. And the guy just does it all. And then when you're factoring in as far as his running ability, Kyler Murray right now accounts for a total of 18.52% of his team's run. He's taking off Shirley. The guy's the full package. So Kyler Murray is definitely going to be a viable option on this slate this week. We also have this shootout game in Patrick Mahomes and the LA Chargers. Expected to have a 55.5 over under 6.5 point spread in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs. Expected to once again be a very high scoring game. And let's be honest, Patrick Mahomes, anytime he's on this slate, is going to be a viable top option. The only thing that's really scaring me to be targeting him is he's not exactly an elite runner. I mean, I'm going to continue to say this throughout the whole season, but I think it's true on these QBs. At this point in the fantasy world, we've reached a point where if the QB doesn't have elite running upside, he's kind of not that relevant, especially in DFS. I mean, we need the running, we need the upside, and don't get me wrong, Patrick Mahomes definitely has the upside, but it's just a matter of whether we want to go to him at 8,200 when we have some of these other guys. He's been tremendous his first 2 weeks, 36, 28 points. But if you go ahead and pull up Kyler Murray, 38, 34 points. And then as far as Lamar Jackson's concerned, I think Lamar Jackson may have some more upside as well. He had 37 points in week 2 with a rushing touchdown. So I think that maybe Lamar Jackson over Patrick Mahomes might be the answer. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very, very close. And Patrick Mahomes, this game's going to be an absolute shootout. His team has a 31 implied total. It's just, when we're looking at Lamar Jackson, I mean, I'm going to be very high on him this week. Detroit's defense is expected to be absolutely terrible. They just lost 2 of their top cornerbacks. This past week, they had their number 2 guy go down as well. So I think this Detroit defense is going to be looking very bad in the secondary as far as how they fared so far to QBs. They've been the 9th best team to target. And then when you're looking at Lamar Jackson as far as his running and all that stuff on my QB key stats tool here, I mean, the guy's just been absolutely dominating in all aspects of the game. Because when you're looking at his rush share percentage, I mean, he accounts for 37.33% of the Baltimore running game. That's absolutely absurd. The guy's a QB. He's almost accounting for 50% of his team's rushes. The upside is going to be tremendous. His team has a 29 implied total here. It's a 50 over-under, 8-point spread in favor of these Baltimore Ravens. And I think Lamar Jackson could have a very big week here. I definitely have interest in him on DraftKings. I have more interest on FanDuel where there's more, importance on the running game and more TDs as opposed to DraftKings. But I really like the guy on both sites, and on DraftKings specifically, I'm really going to like him. Russell Wilson, another guy we can definitely look into. Seattle taking on Minnesota, another big total here with a 55.5 over-under. His team has a 28.75 implied total, and one thing I like about Russell Wilson is he's going deep early and often here early on in the season. As far as his deep ball attempts here, when pulling up my QB key stats tool, 11 deep ball attempts with a 54.54 deep ball completion percentage, 5.79 air yards per attempt. That currently is number 4 in the league. You got Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones, Kyler Murray, and then Russell Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson, a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's been playing from behind so often. But Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, both really standing out to me from a deep ball perspective, in both in games that the scoring is expected to definitely be high here. So they're going to be great options to be going to. And this week we have Tom Brady taking on the LA Rams, another game that's expected to be a high total of 55.5 over under, 28.5 implied total for his team. Of course, he has a tremendous wide receiver core, tremendous receiving options, and he could be a high upside option. I'm really going to like Justin Herbert in that same game, running it back against Patrick Mahomes with a 55.5 over under, 6.5 point spread. His team's expected to be playing from behind here, and I think that he's definitely going to be a good value. I mean, Stafford running it back in that same Tampa Bay game. This position is just absolutely loaded. As mentioned, I think the differentiator this week is really going to be who can run, though, and who can't. And one guy that I'm really going to like this week is going to be Mr. Daniel Jones taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons defense and their secondary is terrible as far as the QB matchup chart here. They've been the number 1 team to target all season long. We knew their defense was terrible last year. The defense is expected to continue to be terrible here. Daniel Jones has been another guy that's been running a tremendous amount, really taking off on the ground. When looking at my QB key stats here, and as far as snap count data and all that fun stuff, Daniel Jones, similar to Lamar Jackson, accounting for a large percentage of his team's rush share. 31.25% of the runs have been that via Daniel Jones' legs. So the guy really is going to have a lot of upside here, and he's another guy that I will surely be targeting on this slate. So let's go ahead and go on to the running back position. So moving on to the running back position, we definitely have some more guys in these high total games that we could definitely be looking to. The first one on this slate that's going to be standing out to me is Mr. Dalvin Cook taking on this Seattle Seahawks team. Seahawks team really hasn't been that great defensively overall all season, and especially against the run game. Number 1 team to target in terms of running so far in the season, really been struggling to hold up on that defensive line. And I think that Dalvin Cook could be in for a big week this week with a 55.5 over under this game with 26.75 implied total for his team and his involvement in this offense. He's definitely been getting many opportunities. We're pulling up the data here as far as Dalvin Cook's concerned. An 85.71 rush share percentage of his team's offense. Very dominant as far as getting the most runs on the team. And then as far as his touch snap percentage, getting a touch on 47.2% of those snaps. No matter where he's going on the field, he's got a 12.66 target share percentage as well out of the backfield. So getting involved in all aspects of this offense. We know what Dalvin Cook offers, and he's definitely a guy that you could be looking to on this slate this week. Definitely a guy that I'm going to be prioritizing. Another guy in a high total game is going to be Austin Eckler in this LA Chargers Kansas City game. The guy is a PPR beast, especially on DraftKings. The targets are going to be there for Austin Eckler. He's definitely involved in this offense early and often. As far as his target share and everything, pulling up the stats on him and his ability to run, Eckler getting approximately 26.1% of the rush snap percentage. He's got a 50% rush share as far as the runs he's getting on the ground, and 35.9% of the time he's seeing a touch on those snaps. 10.47% target share. He's involved in all aspects as well. Expected him to really have a big game here in this matchup. Wouldn't be surprised in the least. So he's another guy that I'm definitely going to be looking to this week. We have Chris Carson as a run back option in that Seattle-Minnesota game with a 55.5 over-under with a 28.75 implied total for his team. Minnesota Vikings, as far as how they fared against the running back position on the season so far. Holding up the matchup chart here, we can see they're 16th against running backs. Not really doing the greatest job of slowing them down. Not the worst in the world either, but I think Chris Carson could be in for a great spot here. The Pittsburgh Steelers taking on Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's workload has been absolutely ridiculous to start the season here. I don't really know if people realize how much of the run game he's been involved in. The problem is he's taking on the Steelers. It's really not a good matchup. Of course, it's going to kind of scare us off. It's only a 4-4 over-under, 20 implied total for his team. It's hard to really be endorsing him in this matchup, but I just have to point out, the guy, he's getting 87.5% of his team's rushes, a 54% touch snap percentage. He's getting touches on 54% of the snaps he's out there. The guy's very involved, 10.91 target share percentage as far as through the air. And it might be a week where we can fade in, but at the same time, you got to be looking his way a little bit. Derrick Henry taking on the Colts, similar. A running back that's not exactly in our top matchup. The Colts are pretty decent against the run. However, the guy was an absolute beast last week. He's getting a bunch of his team's runs as well as far as a large share. Where we're worried about a league where there's running back committees, that's just not the case with them. 83.87% of his team's runs. These are the guys that are really getting the volume. Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, they stand out right at the top for me right away as far as this week's concerned. And then as far as anyone else we're looking to, Nick Chubb taking on the Chicago Bears, another guy that could be running when the team's up big, a 7-point spread here, a 26.75 implied total. And as far as the Chicago Bears and how they fared against the run, once again, not exactly the best matchup in the world at the 28th best team to target. So this is kind of the case. We're looking up and down this chart this week as far as our running backs are concerned. There's going to be definitely some spots that aren't exactly the most enticing. One guy that's really standing out to me is DeAndre Swift at a $5,800 price tag, taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, typically a team that you would think of as being just this huge powerhouse run D, pass D. Against the run, they really haven't been that great so far. And I think that DeAndre Swift could maybe be a guy that has a big week this week, maybe get it going here. And especially in this price tag, he's really standing out to me as a great value play. We also have another guy that I want to mention as a good value play in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Recent performances have really dipped his price tag. He's taken on this LA Chargers team, as mentioned, in this huge total. 31 implied total for his team. He's only 4,800 on DraftKings. I think that's going to be an absolute steal this week. So he's a guy that I would be looking to for sure on this slate. And then as far as anyone else is concerned, we talked about some of the guys I'm really having interest in. Austin Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift. As far as anyone else, Dalvin Cook at the top, of course. Another guy that's really standing out to me is going to be Mike Davis taking on the New York Giants. I really think that he could be someone that could maybe have a big week here, specifically at his price tag. On DraftKings, he's not exactly a pass-catching back, unfortunately. I do prefer to target guys that do get quite a few targets on DraftKings, so that's maybe a little bit of a downside to target him. But he's only 5,100. He's been out there on 70% of the snaps. His team has a 22.75 implied total, and for once, it's a 3-point spread. They're expected to actually stay in this game. Atlanta's been having a hard time keeping up with some of these teams. I think that Mike Davis could be in for a little bit of a heavier workload this week, and he's a guy that I'd be looking to taking a first look at this slate. So let's go ahead and transition over to the wide receiver position. So looking at the wide receiver position, we're definitely going to have some great options on this week 3 slate. As I mentioned, we have some huge totals on this week. It's going to be an absolute crazy slate. And then when you're breaking down the specific wide receivers, I always mention you're going to want to play 2 wide receivers with your QB, either a QB or you can maybe do a wide receiver tight end. But regardless, basically you're going to be playing your wide receiver with a QB. We talked about some of the QBs we're going to be interested in. So, of course, we're going to be interested in some of the wide receivers. It all starts at the top with Tyreek Hill taking on this LA Chargers team, this huge total. Patrick Mahomes, we know what this guy's capable of, an absolute downhill burner. Downfield, constantly getting targeted deep. When you're looking at the stats this season, that's really not changed. Tyreek Hill, of course, across the board. He has a 30.6% target share percentage, 13.05 average target distance downfield. He's got 124 air yards per game down the field. And then as far as red zone targets, he's getting targeted in the red zone as well. 2 red zone targets so far on the season. I mean, it's only been 2 weeks. We'll take what we can get with 19 total targets. And the guy's just the full package when you're breaking everything down. And then he's been playing on 92.2% of his team snaps. So, I mean, you can't really ask for much more. He's getting 30% of his team's snaps. 30% of his team's targets. He's getting targeted downfield. You can't ask for much more. And he's going to be definitely a guy that we're starting with at the top in this huge total game. Definitely liking him. We have the Seattle receivers taking on the Minnesota squad. So, of course, we're going to have interest in targeting Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I talked about Russell Wilson and his ability to throw it down the field deep in these games. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf really going to be standing out to me. And then, of course, Justin Jefferson as a run back option in that same game, going downfield early and often. I'm going to really like. The Rams wide receivers in the LA Rams Tampa Bay game, really going to have a lot of interest in them, specifically on DraftKings as well. Cooper Kupp and his counterpart in Robert Woods, definitely going to be great plays on the slate this week. And when you're looking at Cooper Kupp and his new connection with QB Matthew Stafford, it's been absolutely ridiculous. Some of these numbers, I mean, the guy is just absolutely dominating. He's got a 38.18% target share percentage in this offense. He's getting targeted almost 40% of the time, playing on 97% of his snaps. And then you're looking at his routes and as far as everything got downfield, he's being targeted a ton. 19 contested targets. He's throwing to him in traffic. It doesn't matter. 4 red zone targets, 2 end zone targets on the season so far. 85.5 air yards per game with 16.93 yards per reception. I mean, Cooper Kupp has just been the entire package. Cooper Kupp and Tyler Lockett, 2 of the highest scoring guys so far on the season, both really connecting with their QBs, and both definitely going to be guys that I'm looking to this week. Definitely going to have interest in them. Then when we're scrolling further along here, I mean, of course, we have Mike Williams in that high-scoring game as well. We talked about that, but then you have to mention the Tampa Bay wide receivers in Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, etc. on this Tampa Bay squad. They're going to be in a great spot here taking on. We got Chris Godwin as well, of course, taking on this LA Rams team. Expected to be a high-scoring game as well. Going to like them. They got Tom Brady throwing the ball. Everything's matching up. They're going to be great options here as far as at the top. I mean, a guy that you have to mention, of course, in that big shootout game that we talked about before in the Chargers and Kansas City is going to be Keenan Allen, another guy that has a huge target share percentage of his team snaps. I mean, the guy's going to get throwing the ball a ton. When looking at his target share percentage and everything on the season so far, I mean, Keenan Allen's always been an absolute beast of a guy as far as target share, and nothing's really going to change this year when we're looking at the stats across the board. Let's see, we're dealing with a 24.4% target share percentage, 11.38 average target distance, 119.5 air yards per game. That's up there for league leaders. And, of course, he's out there for a ton of snaps as well. Not something that we're really worried about. When looking at that, he's playing on 86% of his team's total snaps. So, I mean, Keenan Allen's going to be the full package, another guy you're really looking to. And from a value aspect, I can tell you one guy that's standing out to me in a major way this week is Mr. Marvin Jones Jr. taking on the Arizona Cardinals. There's a 52 over-under this game. His team has a 22.5 implied total. The new young rookie in Trevor Lawrence throwing him the ball. And I think he's just way too cheap at $4,900. Marvin Jones is the one guy that I'm looking to definitely be targeting from a value aspect this week. And another guy that you can be looking to for value. And then as far as any more value, T. Higgins is 5,100 is another guy that's standing out to me. It's really not the best ideal game environment. We talked about all these games that are going to be high scoring. I mean, those are the receivers I really want to go to. You know, it's not really rocket science. There's enough of these high scoring games where these guys really shouldn't garner the ownership that you would typically think maybe that they would. And we could be targeting them, stacking them up with our QBs, and feeling pretty confident. So that's what I'd be looking to at the wide receiver position. A quick little stack there. Quick little first look. And let's go to transition over to the tight end position. And at the tight end position, of course, it all starts with the two top dogs at the top in Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. Both of these guys, absolute beasts on the field, both seeing a huge target share in their offenses. And maybe the only thing that could be separating them is, in fact, that the Kansas City game is a much higher implied total, and Kelce is just the number one tight end in fantasy no matter what, and especially when you're factoring in the pace differential here and the expected implied total for his team. So Travis Kelce is going to definitely be a top priority here. I mean, the guy just does it all. It's no surprise. Every season he does the same thing. Travis Kelce playing 85% of snaps. He has 15% target snap percentage, 23.81 percentage as far as his target share in this offense. And I think that's even maybe a little bit low so far in the season. I think that we could see that go up quite a bit. I mean, we know how much Patrick Mahomes loves to throw this guy. We know how much of a threat he is. Not going to stop him. And then as far as anything else, on his stats, he's been getting plenty of contested targets, plenty of red zone targets. Travis Kelce's the whole package. We know what he's about. Darren Waller is going to be the same guy. It's just a matter of the total and this tough matchup here, taking on Miami. Or maybe not the tough matchup, but more so the total. But, I mean, Waller's definitely going to be still a great play. If I'm going to the Vegas stack, no issues with playing him, especially if maybe you're playing a Myles Gaskin, run it back with him on the other side or something like that. Rob Gronkowski taking on this LA Rams team. He's been an absolute beast on the season. This guy's target share in the red zone specifically has been unbelievable. He's got an 82.92% snap share percentage, 16% target share percentage. 78 air yards per game is actually pretty decent. He's got 4 red zone targets, 3 end zone targets, getting the job done early and often, and playing a total of 85% of his team snaps so far in the season. So it's not like they're just putting him in on red zone situations. Gronk's been out there early and often, and he's even getting targeted on deep passes. So I think Gronk's the full package. He's definitely a guy that I'm going to be looking to this week. I think it goes without saying, Tom Brady and his chemistry is unmatched. If you're going to that game and you want to stack it up with that, it's going to make a lot of sense. And I'm definitely going to have a lot of interest in Mr. Rob Gronkowski. We also have Mark Andrews taking on the Detroit Lions is another guy I'm going to be looking to. We talked about Lamar Jackson. Pairing him up with his tight end could be a great situation here. Lamar Jackson not exactly known for his arm all the time. He can get it done on the ground, but I think in this Detroit matchup, it could be leaving plenty of room for upside for him through the air. Definitely going to like Mr. Mark Andrews. Kyle Pitts continues to be a tremendous talent. He's priced at a reasonable price at $4,900 taking on this Giants team. I think it's just a matter of time before he has a huge game for this Atlanta team, and I definitely do have interest in him. Logan Thomas, another guy that's been a pretty decent target share beast, taking on Buffalo. Not the highest implied total at all with an 18.5% implied total. An 18.5 implied total. But we know the target share that he's getting. We know the volume he's getting. I think he's going to make a lot of sense on this slate this week. Maybe not quite as much of a priority with some of these other guys we have. And then as far as from a salary relief option, one guy that I would be looking to would be Mr. Austin Hooper taking on the Chicago Bears. With this implied total, they're expected to get 26.75 on the board, 7-point spread. I think taking on the Chicago Bears team, Austin Hooper's priced at a pretty reasonable price here, and he's another guy they'd be looking to here, taking a first look at this slate this week. So that's a position-by-position breakdown. We looked at DraftKings first. As far as FanDuel's concerned, we talked about Lamar Jackson being definitely a differentiator over there. And then as far as some of these other guys we talked about, I mean, I'd say overall, from a first look perspective, I'm going to have a lot of interest in the same guys. Maybe a couple guys that I may have not mentioned. I'm just trying to look on my list here to see if there's some guys I might have some more interest in over here that we didn't quite talk about as much. Going down the list, I mean, James Robinson is a guy that's definitely priced very cheap on FanDuel. He's only $5,500, and when you look at it from that perspective, I mean, that's really, really cheap. He hasn't had the best start to the season, but from a salary relief aspect, I think he's definitely going to make a lot of sense. We talked about Mike Davis. He's only $5,700 though. But James Robinson, a guy that's involved in this Jacksonville offense, taking on an Arizona team. And as far as the implied total and everything in this game, it's expected to be, reasonable. And we talked about maybe passing to Marvin Jones. He's a guy that I have interest in. We can definitely be targeting Mr. James Robinson as well. So I definitely have some interest in him on FanDuel. As far as anyone else that we talked about, I mean, it's pretty much the same ordeal over here for the most part, to be honest with you. I always try to point out some differences. Robert Woods at $6,100 is a very friendly price tag. We talked about having interest in him and the Rams taking on this Tampa Bay team this week, so I definitely would be looking his way on FanDuel. Cooper Kupp, once again, 7,100. I mean, that's not exactly a quote-unquote value play, but I really like Cooper Kupp this week. DK Metcalf at 7,200. Dalvin Cook's going to be a priority for me at the running back position at 9,500. We liked Marvin Jones. I like Keenan Allen over on FanDuel as well. Mark Andrews at the tight end position, I think is priced pretty reasonable over here on FanDuel at 6,000. So he's definitely a guy that I'd be looking to on FanDuel that we already talked about, but specifically with the pricing and everything, 6K compared to all the way up to 8,500 for a Travis Kelce. He's definitely a guy that could be making a lot of sense in this Week 3 matchup. And I'd say that's a pretty good overall breakdown. I mean, we talked about a lot of these guys on the DraftKings side that I'm going to have interest in over here as well. Of course, when you're comparing the sites, there's going to be guys that stand out to you. But overall, with the way these games are expected to be at a pace and the way things are expected to break down this week, I think that's a good overall look at who I'd be looking to play and a good first look. So with that being out of the way, if you did enjoy the content at any point in this video, if you could please take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. Wish you guys all the best of luck with Week 3. Go ahead and check out my NFL DFS Premium Package, a link below in the description, and we will have more content coming your way later on in the week. Trying to get some more content rolling here. I've been working really hard on that package, so hopefully with some things settled down here, we can get you some top stacks videos, some final look videos, all that fun stuff. So with that being said, we will see you in the next video.